growing up and all their responsibilities kind of freaked him out. I think that probably has something to do, but I think there was a bunch of like movie events that like led up to his back decision.
I had the same example kind of as David. So like on page 118, they were at Taco Bell, and a lady was like, or no, Sam said it was like embarrassing how Claire's baby was like biting on his shirt or whatever, and I think he just kind of realized like this is his reality, like this is his life, and that's kind of what's going on. I think he just didn't really want it, and kind of how he was fighting, or he watched the other couple or the mom fighting with the kid. It's just like looking at his future, realizing.
I think he's kind of like doubtful throughout the entire story. Like I just don't know if he was very confident. Like he was always second guessing himself, kind of, and like doubting how good of a parent he was. And I also like it's not like he was embarrassed, but like you know when they went out into public and he would always hesitate when they asked if it was like his kid because he wanted to say like no. And so it's not like he was embarrassed, but he I don't know almost didn't want it to be like real. So I just don't really think he was necessarily ready to be a parent right at that time.
Yeah, I think that maybe he just like felt bad for thinking about things like about like letting go of Max or whatever, because in the part, I don't know who he's talking to or anything, but on some page he was like, if I didn't have, and then he thinks about Max, but he doesn't say it. Apparently he just says if I didn't have, and then he says something else. I think that he was like thinking about it the whole time, but he was never like sure. But then like the real point when it actually like made him realize that Max isn't meant to be for him in the moment in his life, was at Andy's house, and he says on page 172, and I wish I could always be here on Andy's driveway with nothing else to think about but the next basket. And once Sam hears his name called, he thinks my fault, my responsibility. So he doesn't think it was anybody, he doesn't blame it on Jenny or anything, so he just feels like Max is like his whole responsibility, and so if he just gets rid of him, he can focus on being a teenager.
I gotta disagree. Gotta disagree with one part that Kelsey said about him not being embarrassed. I felt like every time he like went out, he was always like embarrassed when he saw like someone he knew, or if someone said something about him and the baby. Like on page 15, when he was trying to dodge that one lady. One lady, and when the cash, the red, whatever, the lady asked him if that was his brother, and he said yeah. So I thought he was embarrassed about having a baby.
Yeah, but then in chapter 21, when like Max was in the hospital, he was like, yeah, that's his parent. So I don't know. I'm just realizing that now it's kind of interesting that he like I don't know, took responsibility.
It's not like he's gonna lie to the doctor.
I know, but he was
It's
like
not like a regular person you see on the street like, yeah, that's my, you can't say, yeah, it's my little brother, and then you find out anyway that it's his son. So there's no reason really to lie to the doctor about
I think that Mandy made a really good point, and I think Ryan also made a good point about like little things adding up. And I think one of like the turning points is on page 172. He's like, sometimes he was like saying something about like the first collapsing because of all the pressure, and I think he feels a lot of pressure to like be a really good father and take care of Max, and so like all the pressure just built up over time, and it just like became too much.
I wanted to go back to that point too, because on page 76, before he takes the SATs, he talks about how nice it would be to just sit in the car and sleep for like through the test. So obviously at that point he still doesn't care about college, and I think he still doesn't change his mind. Also on page 143, when he throws the College Board envelope into the garbage, like he doesn't even decide to open it and like see how he did. So it's clear at that point that he was still planning on keeping Max.
But I feel like at that point he didn't see like another option, like giving him for adoption. So I agree with what you're saying. But I think that
I agree with that too. I just think the reason that he actually just threw it away is just because his dad was mad. I think he's just trying to make a point that he wasn't actually thinking about something else, just to make his dad more
frustration.
2 minutes.
Let's go to the next question now.
A few more. Do you like or dislike the
Just
let?
give it if anyone else wants.
Any final comments? No. Do you like or dislike the last chapter? Do you think Sam made the right choice to give up Max? Why or why not? And is this decision a selfish one or a selfless one? What other options did he have?
I dislike this chapter because I wish it would have ended like a fast forward. I think I said this before, but I think I wish it ended with like a fast forward to him like fishing with him, like and not giving him up for adoption, still did it the way the successful way. Like in 2000 or page 204, he pulls up in a good safe car. So it sounds like Max has successfully like grown up and like he's living in the right places and stuff. But yeah, like I said, I just wish it would fast forward to him not giving him up for adoption, because I think that kind of ruined the book.
I agree with Kyle about I just like the last chapter because it kind of just fast forward and jumped to the end, and I really didn't like that. Like he said he was going to do adoption, and just jumps to when he's 18, or at least they could have made that a little longer, like him spending time. But page 204, it really shows that Max really made up good stuff for himself or whatever. Yeah.
I agree that it was a terrible ending, but I think it was the right decision that Sam made. Like on page 202, 204, it showed that he had got married, had a good job that he always wanted, had kids. I think it was kind of selfish that he just gave. He wanted to do it because he wanted to do other things. I feel like instead of he wanted the best for Max. Instead of like not going to college, he wanted to go to college and stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like it was a win-win in like both situations because Max has like a good family that is resourceful and obviously pretty well off if he's driving a Volvo himself. So I think that just shows that they genuinely care about him, and Sam had an opportunity to get like an education, get a good job, and start his own family. So I think that there's no party that's exactly hurt by the situation, maybe like emotionally, but it's not like he probably remembers his dad anyway because he's only 1 year old. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sam could have been a good dad and like they could have had a good life, but at the same time, like I think obviously he had a good life with his adoptive parents, but like I don't know, I just didn't really like the ending. I mean, I felt like there was no closure. It was just kind of like done, and like on page 204, it's just like hi Max, and like we don't even like get to figure out anything about him. Like I wish they would have had like a conversation at least or something. And the decision giving him up, like I think he meant it as like selfless, but it kind of came off as selfish. Yeah.
So, I was actually thinking, I like the chapter, the ending, because the book, the whole path of the book up to like chapter 20, 22, around there towards the end, it was very predictable and it was too positive to be realistic. Like I felt like this book was just, it was like, yeah, everything went well, you know, Claire came to the same school and all this good happened by chance, and I don't think that's how it should work. That's how it doesn't work that way. And then this chapter kind of showed that it's real. Like, you know, it's not, oh, good chance, oh yeah, he kept the baby, yay. It's like, you know, this might actually happen. Like people give up kids for adoption. I feel like that's realistic. And I like that, well, in terms of the selfish or selfless, it's kind of both. There's some parts that are selfish, all the patrons are stated on question 6, because it's just for himself that he didn't want Max, but at the same time, at the end, on page 201, when he was talking about like how he wanted Max's mom to think about the stickers that he stuck up on the ceiling, that's very selfless. Like he was thinking about Max, like this might actually be good for Max too. And in terms of the ending and stuff, the last couple of pages, like the Volvo, I agree with that, what Mitch said, and I agree with how, I feel like he still remembered him throughout 18 years, because he said Brittany's eyes, he's a football player, he has curly hair, which is the same hair that Sam had, so even after 18 years, he still remembers actually what he was thinking about Max, and hopefully, I don't know, leaves it a cliffhanger. I wish he didn't do that, but that's how this works. So.
I agree with David that it was a it was both selfish and selfless decision. I think it was more selfless though, like he knew that Max was, he knew that the best life for Max was probably not with him because he's struggling, like maybe he'll find a good mom who knows to do these things, like when, you know, different examples from the book, but I think it's a little bit selfish because of the perks that come along with it. Like on page 139 to 141, when Anjin and his dad are arguing why he took the ACT, I think giving Max up for adoption kind of validates his action to take the ACT, because then he can finally go to college. And if he had kept Max, for him there would be no college. No, Sarah, I think was the name of his wife at the end of the book, maybe. Yeah. And then Max would be different. Maybe Max would be better or worse life. We don't know, but we can assume that it would be not as good because of the situation that they were in. But I think that it was more selfless than selfish, because he was trying to be selfless at first, like the idea, and he tried to keep it going for a year to keep Max, but he knew that not having Max growing up in a different place would be better for everyone, him and those people who wanted to give Max life and Max. I honestly like the last chapter. I think the fact that all those good things happened with both of them added closure. I kind of disagree with Kelsey, but that's my opinion.
I completely agree with what David was saying before, how I think that the whole book was kind of like everything good was happening, and I think that if it would have just flash forwarded to like them like fishing and stuff, it would have just been like, it would have like made having a kid not look that bad actually, like, and I like really agree with how like it wouldn't have been as realistic, like that doesn't like happen, like he would probably have financial issues the rest of his life and like stuff like that because he wouldn't be able to go to a good college, and he would have to like pay for daycare and all these things doing construction because he's going to be working such bad hours, and I don't know, like I just didn't like it how he was like, hi, he says, he held out his hand and said, I'm Max, on page 204, because it was just like I didn't like that was the last sentence of the book, because it didn't really like give us anything, like I just would have rather gotten more out of it, I guess.
Yeah, but like being a fiction book, like I want it to like end the perfect way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I want to read a book and it just like end like, oh great.
Like you cared for the characters.
Yeah, like you want everything to work out for them, but it's like you get to the end and you're just like, well, that really worked out, and like I feel like everyone in the class hated the book or hated the ending. At least I did. But like if it ended the way that like we all wanted it to, I feel like it would be that he doesn't get adopted and they grow up and la la la. That's kind of what I want in a nonfiction book, I guess.
I think like fiction.
Or I mean,
originally I like hated the ending, but then when I was thinking more about it, I feel like pretty much any ending would like sucked. I don't know, like just how the book was written. Oh yeah, everything is as a little kid. Like no matter what, I don't know, it'd be a really hard way to finish a book.
Yeah, you can't do the
So
whole
pretty much
thing.
the book sucks either way, is what you're saying.
Well,
It's just
I didn't hate the book, but like even if like he would have like kept him and then we see in the future that they got along and he had a good life, it'd be like, alright, tight. And it's not really that exciting.
Exactly, like, so attached to Max, like, I like reading the book, because it was like, because I like little kids and stuff, and like hearing about him and stuff, it was like fun, and like, we all like ended up really liking him, so I feel like it was just like sad to end the book in general. And then like, also to stay technical, on page 133, he says, we were gonna make out again, and I wasn't sure I wanted to, so like, that showed that he had an option to be with Claire, and then he like could have had a family with her, but he didn't really want to.
I think a silver lining is that we realized that the only reason that him and Claire are like together is because they both had kids, because as soon as he gives Max up for adoption or even like entertains the idea, she's like out of there. She's done. So I think that just shows that